2 years ago, my boyfriend David, 29M, and I, 27F, were having serious relationship problems. We'd been together for 3 years, and were constantly fighting about everything: money, his drinking, my jealousy issues, whether to move in together. We loved each other but couldn't communicate without it turning into a screaming match. My friend recommended her couples counselor, Dr. Sarah Chen, who had apparently saved her marriage. Dr. Chen had great reviews online and specialized in relationship communication. She was expensive, but David and I were desperate to make things work. Our first session seemed promising. Dr. Chen was probably mid-30s, really put together, and had this calm energy that made both of us feel comfortable opening up. She said she thought we had a strong foundation and that with work we could definitely improve our communication patterns. For the first month, things went well. We were having sessions twice a week and actually started fighting less at home. Dr. Chen gave us homework assignments and techniques for de-escalating arguments. David seemed more engaged in therapy than I'd ever seen him be about anything. That's when I started noticing weird things. David would get to our sessions early, and I'd arrive to find him and Dr. Chen laughing about something. When I'd ask what was funny, they'd say it was just small talk. David started mentioning things Dr. Chen had said during our sessions in random conversations at home, like Dr. Chen thinks I have good insight, or Dr. Chen says I'm making real progress. I thought it was normal for him to be excited about therapy working, but something felt off about how much he talked about her. About 6 weeks in, I had to reschedule one of our sessions because of a work emergency. When I called David to let him know, he said he'd already contacted Dr. Chen and she'd suggested he come alone for an individual session instead. I was surprised because she'd never mentioned individual sessions before, and I thought couples counseling meant we always went together. When I asked David about it afterward, he said they'd just worked on some personal issues that were affecting our relationship. Over the next few weeks, David kept scheduling individual sessions. Dr. Chen told me it was normal and that sometimes partners need to work on themselves separately before they can work on the relationship together. It made sense, but I felt left out. David started changing in ways that seemed positive at first. He was more confident, started dressing better, and seemed happier overall. But he also became more critical of me and our relationship. He'd bring up things in our couple sessions that he'd apparently discussed with Dr. Chen individually, like how I was emotionally reactive or had trust issues. I felt ganged up on. It was like David and Dr. Chen had these private conversations about my flaws and then presented their conclusions to me as professional observations. Things came to a head about 4 months into therapy. David told me he thought we should take a break because he needed to work on himself and figure out what he wanted. I was devastated but agreed to give him space. During our break, David continued seeing Dr. Chen for individual therapy. I thought it was weird, but he said she was helping him process our relationship and figure out his feelings. 2 weeks into our break, David came over to get some of his stuff and told me he didn't think we should get back together. He said therapy had helped him realize we were incompatible and that he needed to be with someone who supported his growth. I was heartbroken but tried to respect his decision. I asked if he wanted to try couples counseling with a different therapist, but he said he was done with our relationship and just wanted to focus on his individual therapy with Dr. Chen. Here's where it gets really messed up. About a month after David broke up with me, I was at Target and saw him in the parking lot with Dr. Chen. They were holding hands and kissing before getting into her car together. I felt sick. I sat in my car for like 20 minutes trying to process what I'd seen. My couples counselor was dating my ex-boyfriend. I went home and Googled whether this was legal or ethical. Apparently, therapists aren't supposed to have personal relationships with clients or their family members/partners. Even after therapy ends, there's supposed to be a waiting period. I was furious. No wonder David had been so eager to go to individual sessions. No wonder he'd started criticizing me and saying we were incompatible. His therapist had been manipulating our relationship while developing feelings for him. I called Dr. Chen's office the next day and asked to speak with her. When she called me back, I told her I'd seen her with David and asked her to explain what was going on. Dr. Chen was quiet for a long time and then said she understood why I was upset, but that her relationship with David had developed after our couples therapy ended. She said she'd never acted unprofessionally and that she and David had waited an appropriate amount of time before pursuing a romantic relationship. I told her that was bullshit because David had been seeing her for individual therapy right up until I saw them together. She said she'd terminated David's individual therapy before they started dating. The whole conversation felt like gaslighting. She kept using therapy speak to make me feel like I was being irrational and jealous instead of acknowledging that what she'd done was completely unethical. I decided to report her to the state licensing board. I filed a complaint explaining the timeline of our couples therapy, David's individual sessions, and the romantic relationship I'd witnessed. I included copies of our session notes and receipts showing David had been seeing her professionally right up until they started dating. The licensing board investigated and found that Dr. Chen had violated multiple ethical guidelines. She got a formal reprimand and had to take additional ethics training, but she didn't lose her license. By then, David and Dr. Chen were living together. I heard through mutual friends that they were telling people they'd met through mutual friends, not through therapy. They got married about 6 months after the licensing board decision. I thought that was the end of it until last month when Dr. Chen contacted me through a lawyer saying I was harassing her and damaging her reputation by spreading false information about how she and David met. Apparently, some people in our social circle had figured out the truth about their relationship, and Dr. Chen was losing clients because of it. She wanted me to sign something saying I wouldn't discuss their relationship publicly anymore. I refused and told her lawyer that everything I'd said was true and that I had every right to tell people about my experience with an unethical therapist. My family thinks I should just move on and stop stirring up drama. They say Dr. Chen and David are married now and that my continued involvement in their business makes me look obsessed and bitter. But I don't think I'm being unreasonable. Dr. Chen used her position of trust to manipulate my relationship and pursue my boyfriend. She violated her professional ethics and then lied about it. Why should I protect her reputation when she destroyed my relationship? I'm not going out of my way to badmouth her, but when people ask me about couples counseling or mention Dr. Chen's name, I tell them the truth about what happened. I think potential clients have a right to know that she's willing to cross professional boundaries. Am I in the wrong for reporting Dr. Chen and continuing to be honest about what happened? Or should I just let it go and let her move on with her life? Update 1. 5 days later. Thank you to everyone who commented and confirmed that I'm not crazy. Reading your responses helped me realize that I've been way too nice about this whole situation. A few people asked for more details about the timeline and what exactly happened during our sessions, so I'll try to clarify it. David and I started couples therapy in January 2022. By March 2022, David was doing individual sessions with Dr. Chen in addition to our couple sessions. In May 2022, David asked for a break from our relationship. In June 2022, David officially broke up with me. In July 2022, I saw David and Dr. Chen together romantically. I checked my records and David's last individual session with Dr. Chen was literally 3 days before I saw them together. So much for waiting an appropriate amount of time. What I didn't mention in my original post is that during our couple sessions, Dr. Chen would often take David's side in arguments or validate his complaints about me while dismissing my concerns. At the time, I thought she was just being objective, but looking back, it's obvious she was biased. For example, when I brought up David's drinking, he was having 4 to 5 beers every night. Dr. Chen said I needed to examine why I was trying to control his behavior instead of addressing whether his drinking was actually a problem. When David complained that I was too emotional, she spent our entire next session teaching me breathing techniques instead of exploring why I was feeling emotional. I also remember her making weird comments about how David was very self-aware and had a lot of potential for growth. She'd smile at him in this way that made me uncomfortable, but I couldn't put my finger on why. The most messed up thing is that Dr. Chen was being paid $200 per session to fix our relationship while she was actively undermining it. We spent thousands of dollars on therapy that was designed to fail because she wanted my boyfriend. Several people suggested I contact the licensing board again with the updated timeline information. I called them yesterday, and they said that since Dr. Chen already has a formal reprimand on her record, this additional evidence could result in a more serious penalty. I'm definitely going to file a supplemental complaint. The investigator I spoke with said that the timing of their relationship makes it clear that Dr. Chen was pursuing David while he was still her client, which is a serious violation. I also found out that I'm not the only person who's had problems with Dr. Chen. When I was researching therapists after this all happened, I found a review from 2021 where someone said Dr. Chen had boundary issues and made them uncomfortable. The review was vague, but now I'm wondering if there's a pattern here. A few people asked why I didn't notice red flags earlier. Honestly, I was so focused on trying to save my relationship that I ignored my instincts. When you're in couples therapy, you're supposed to trust your therapist and assume they have your best interests at heart. It never occurred to me that Dr. Chen might have ulterior motives. I also want to address the people who said I should just move on. I get that holding on to anger isn't healthy, but this isn't about being unable to let go of David. I'm actually glad we broke up because I've realized we weren't compatible anyway. This is about a mental health professional who abused her position of trust and violated her ethical obligations. If Dr. Chen had been a regular person who David met at a bar, I wouldn't care. But she was MY therapist who I paid to help MY relationship, and she used that access to steal my boyfriend. Dr. Chen is still practicing and seeing couples. What if she does this to someone else? What if there's another woman out there right now whose relationship is being sabotaged by her therapist? I have a responsibility to protect other people from experiencing what I went through. Dr. Chen clearly hasn't learned from her mistakes since she's now trying to silence me instead of taking accountability for her actions. Update 2. 2 weeks later. This situation has gotten so much worse, and I honestly don't know what to do anymore. After I posted my update, I decided to look more into Dr. Chen's background and see if I could find other people who'd had bad experiences with her. I found her LinkedIn profile and noticed she'd worked at a group therapy practice before starting her own private practice. I called the group practice and asked to speak with the office manager. I explained that I'd had a bad experience with Dr. Chen and was wondering if they could tell me anything about why she'd left their practice. The office manager couldn't give me details because of confidentiality, but she did say that Dr. Chen had parted ways with their practice in 2020 due to professional differences. She suggested I contact the licensing board if I had concerns about Dr. Chen's conduct. That made me even more suspicious that there might be a pattern of unethical behavior. I started looking at online reviews more carefully and found several that mentioned Dr. Chen being inappropriate or unprofessional, though most didn't give specifics. Then I found a review from 2021 that was more detailed. A woman wrote that Dr. Chen had been her marriage counselor and had clearly developed feelings for my husband. The reviewer said Dr. Chen had started scheduling individual sessions with her husband and had been obviously flirting with him during couple sessions. The review said that the woman's husband had eventually left her for Dr. Chen and that they'd gotten married about a year later. The reviewer warned other people not to trust Dr. Chen with their relationships. I screenshot the review and was about to add it to my licensing board complaint when I noticed that the review had been deleted. I checked the next day and it was gone. I managed to find the woman who wrote the review through some internet sleuthing and sent her a message explaining my situation. She called me within an hour and we had the most disturbing conversation. Her name is Lisa and she and her husband had seen Dr. Chen for couples therapy in 2020 to 2021. According to Lisa, Dr. Chen had done exactly the same thing to her that she'd done to me, scheduled individual sessions with Lisa's husband, sided with him during couple sessions, and encouraged him to question whether his marriage was healthy. Lisa said that Dr. Chen had convinced her husband that Lisa was emotionally abusive and that he deserved better. Her husband filed for divorce in late 2021 and married Chen in early 2022. Lisa said she'd reported Dr. Chen to the licensing board, but that nothing had come of it because Dr. Chen claimed she'd waited an appropriate amount of time after terminating therapy before pursuing a relationship with Lisa's ex-husband. But here's the really messed up part. Lisa's ex-husband and Dr. Chen got divorced in late 2022. According to Lisa, her ex-husband had called her crying and saying that Dr. Chen had been manipulative and controlling during their marriage. He'd realized that Dr. Chen had love-bombed him and that their relationship had been built on lies. Lisa said her ex-husband had told her that Dr. Chen had a pattern of targeting male clients in troubled relationships and that she'd bragged about being able to steal any man from his partner. I was horrified. This meant that Dr. Chen had done this to at least 2 other women before me and probably more. She was using her position as a therapist to systematically destroy relationships so she could pursue the men. Lisa and I decided to file a joint complaint with the licensing board. We're also considering hiring a lawyer to see if we have grounds for a civil lawsuit. But then things got scary. 2 days after I talked to Lisa, I got a call from Dr. Chen's lawyer saying that I was harassing his client and that if I didn't stop spreading defamatory information about her, they would file a restraining order against me. I told the lawyer that I was just sharing my experience with other people who'd had similar experiences and that everything I was saying was true. He said that didn't matter and that I was damaging Dr. Chen's reputation and business. The lawyer also said that Dr. Chen and David were considering suing me for intentional interference with business relationships because potential clients had canceled appointments after hearing about what happened. I'm really scared now. I don't have money for a lawyer and I don't want to get sued. But I also can't just let Dr. Chen keep doing this to other people. My family is freaking out and saying I should just stop before I get in legal trouble. They think I'm being vindictive and that I should just let Dr. Chen and David live their lives. But how can I do that when I know she's probably destroying other people's relationships right now? What if there's another woman sitting in Dr. Chen's office having no idea that her therapist is planning to steal her husband? I feel like I'm going crazy. Everyone is telling me to let it go, but I know what I experienced was real and wrong. I don't know what to do anymore. Update 3. 1 month later. After Dr. Chen's lawyer threatened me, I decided to find a lawyer of my own. I couldn't afford to hire one outright, but I found an attorney who specializes in professional malpractice who agreed to give me a free consultation. The lawyer, Janet, said that what Dr. Chen had done was clearly unethical and potentially illegal. She said that therapists have a fiduciary duty to their clients and that Dr. Chen had violated that duty by pursuing a romantic relationship with my partner. Janet also said that Dr. Chen's threats were probably empty and that truth is a defense against defamation claims. She offered to represent me on a contingency basis if I wanted to pursue a civil lawsuit against Dr. Chen. I was considering it when something incredible happened. Lisa, the woman whose husband Dr. Chen had also stolen, called me with news that changed everything. Lisa had been doing her own investigation into Dr. Chen's background and had managed to contact several of Dr. Chen's former clients. She'd found 5 other women who'd had similar experiences with Dr. Chen. Apparently, Dr. Chen had been running the same scam for years. She'd target couples where the woman was the primary breadwinner or where the man seemed unhappy in his relationship. She'd schedule individual sessions with the men and gradually convince them that their partners were holding them back. Lisa had found women whose husbands had left them for Dr. Chen between 2018 and 2022. Dr. Chen would date these men for 6 to 12 months, then dump them and move on to the next client's husband. David wasn't special. He was just her latest victim. And I wasn't the only woman whose life she destroyed for her own entertainment. Lisa had convinced 3 of the other women to file complaints with the licensing board. With all of our complaints together, there was now a clear pattern of predatory behavior that the board couldn't ignore. But the best part was what Lisa found out about Dr. Chen's current situation. Remember how I said David and Dr. Chen got married? Well, Lisa discovered that Dr. Chen had been having an affair with another client's husband while she was married to David. David had found out about the affair and filed for divorce. Dr. Chen was now married to husband number 3, who she'd also met through therapy. Lisa managed to get in touch with David, who was apparently devastated and angry about being manipulated by Dr. Chen. He agreed to cooperate with our licensing board complaints and provide evidence of Dr. Chen's unethical behavior. David told Lisa that Dr. Chen had admitted to him that she'd targeted our relationship from the beginning because she thought he was attractive and successful. She told him that she enjoyed the challenge of breaking up couples and that she was good at making men fall in love with her. David said he'd realized that Dr. Chen was a sociopath who had never actually cared about him. She'd love-bombed him during their relationship and then discarded him as soon as she found someone new. Armed with all this evidence, Lisa and I filed a massive complaint with the licensing board. We had testimonies from 6 different women, evidence of Dr. Chen's pattern of behavior, and David's cooperation as a witness. The licensing board opened a formal investigation and suspended Dr. Chen's license, pending the outcome. She can't practice therapy while the investigation is ongoing. Dr. Chen's lawyer called me one more time to threaten legal action, but when I told him about all the evidence we'd gathered and that we now had an attorney representing us, he backed off quickly. The best part is that word has gotten out in the local therapy community about what Dr. Chen was doing. Several therapists have reached out to express their disgust and support for holding her accountable. I also found out that Dr. Chen had been lying about her credentials. She'd been advertising herself as having a PhD when she actually only had a master's degree. That's another violation that the licensing board is investigating. I'm not sure what the final outcome will be, but I'm confident that Dr. Chen will lose her license and won't be able to hurt anyone else. Lisa and I are also exploring a civil lawsuit to recover the money we spent on fraudulent therapy. The crazy thing is that I feel sorry for David now. He was manipulated just like I was, and Dr. Chen destroyed his life too. I'm not interested in getting back together with him or anything, but I'm glad he's finally seeing Dr. Chen for who she really is. I'm also proud that I trusted my instincts and didn't let Dr. Chen intimidate me into staying quiet. If I'd listened to my family and just moved on, Dr. Chen would still be practicing and destroying other people's relationships. To anyone reading this who's had a bad experience with a therapist, trust your gut and report them. Don't let them gaslight you into thinking you're overreacting. Mental health professionals have a responsibility to help people, not exploit them. Update 4, 3 months later. Final update because this whole nightmare is finally over. The licensing board completed their investigation, and Dr. Chen lost her license permanently. She can never practice therapy again in our state, and the violation will follow her if she tries to get licensed anywhere else. The board found that Dr. Chen had violated multiple ethical guidelines including engaging in sexual relationships with clients' partners, failing to maintain appropriate boundaries, misrepresenting her credentials, using her position of trust to manipulate clients, failing to provide competent care. Lisa and I also won our civil lawsuit. Dr. Chen had to pay us damages for the fraudulent therapy and emotional distress. It wasn't a huge amount, but it was enough to cover our legal fees and compensate us for the money we'd wasted on fake therapy. The other women who'd been victimized by Dr. Chen also got settlements. In total, Dr. Chen had to pay out over $200,000 in damages to the women whose lives she'd destroyed. Dr. Chen's practice went out of business obviously, and she's apparently working in retail now. Her marriage to her latest victim didn't last long. They got divorced about 2 months after she lost her license. David reached out to apologize for his part in what happened. He said he'd been in therapy with a legitimate therapist and had realized how much Dr. Chen had manipulated both of us. He didn't ask to get back together or anything, just wanted to take responsibility for his actions. I appreciated the apology, but I'm not interested in maintaining a relationship with him. What Dr. Chen did doesn't excuse the way David treated me during our relationship or the fact that he was willing to abandon our 3-year relationship for someone he'd known for a few months. The best part of all this is that I'm in a really good place now. I found an amazing therapist who's actually helping me work through my trust issues and communication problems. I've learned to recognize red flags and trust my instincts. I'm also dating someone new who's nothing like David. He's honest, consistent, and actually listens to me when I express concerns instead of dismissing them. We're taking things slow, but I'm optimistic about the future. Looking back, I'm grateful that Dr. Chen showed her true colors when she did. If she'd been more careful about hiding her unethical behavior, I might have married David and wasted even more years with someone who didn't really love me. The whole experience taught me that sometimes the worst things that happen to you end up being blessings in disguise. I'm stronger, wiser, and more confident than I was before this happened. To anyone dealing with unethical professionals, don't let them silence you. Your voice matters, and you have the power to stop them from hurting other people. It's not always easy, but it's worth it. Dr. Chen thought she was untouchable because she had a fancy degree and a professional license. She was wrong. Nobody is above accountability, no matter how much power they think they have. I'm closing this chapter of my life and moving forward. Thanks to everyone who supported me through this crazy journey.